Alright, doing a quick commentary on me fighting the new Nemesis boss in 12.1 because Steam decided not to record any audio for my footage. So yeah, when you pull this boss, pull him to the side of the room like this. The reason for that is he does this big AoE, and you don't want these green spots to spawn all over the room. Don't stand in them. They do like a lot of nature damage. They won't one-shot you, but just be mindful. He is going to transition at 90%. I'm slowing down my DPS because I like to bait that big AoE attack twice before I transition him. Right there. At this point you should start moving to the center of the room. I didn't because I kind of lost track. But yeah, there you go. He transitioned. In this phase he does this sermon, which is these big AoE. The room is spread into 4 quadrants. One quadrant is always going to be safe, and then you're kind of retracing your steps afterwards. This is the memory game part of the fight, and there's an add in the question mark difficulty, so you have to kind of kill the add while you're doing the memory game. Honestly, the memory game is pretty fucking annoying, so I have an add-on for it that I downloaded, which kind of makes this fight trivial. I've seen people do it without the add-on. I hate the memory game. I think it's annoying, so the add-on helps a lot. I would highly recommend using the add-on. But hey, if you can do the memory game, more power to you. Yeah, I suck at it. So once he does that phase, he's not going to do that big AoE until 60%. So he does it at 90%, 60%, and 30%. So at this point you can tank him back at the edge of the room. Just dodge the AoE, the slimes. There's a cast this is the cast Soul Extension that I just interrupted. You have to look out for that. That cast will one-shot you. I have a DBM alert set for it, so I don't even look at what he's casting. I just wait for whenever I hear that audio that I've set for it, I just hit my interrupt. Pretty easy, not really a lot to manage. There's another debuff that he puts on you, which Valeera can dispel for you. You don't really need to worry about that. Valeera is usually pretty good at healing you and dispelling that, so I'm not even going to talk about that. I am now just waiting until 60% to transition him. I usually like doing it after he does the Soul Extension, so I'm gonna start spamming my spells, start moving to the center right there. I got pretty lucky again. Focus the add. You can just tap target it. That's what I do. Pop your cooldowns. Nuke the add. The add can also cast Soul Extinction, so you have to make sure you interrupt that or stun it. The add is dead. Now you're just retracing your steps. You don't really need to attack the boss in this or DPS the boss. He takes reduced damage, so just focus on dodging the AoE. Stay as close to the boss as you can. It makes dodging the AoE much easier, less room to move, I guess. Once he's out of that phase, you're bringing him back out to the edge of the room. Just dodge the slimes. Like I said, the slimes can sometimes spawn behind you, and that will kill you. So that's the only bad RNG part of this fight, I think. This boss is pretty predictable. All the spells that he casts them in order, so he'll always do that thing that you have to interrupt, and then Void Toxin, whatever that is, and then Soul Extinction, and so you can kind of force him to phase whenever you want. I'm just waiting until 30% is when he's gonna go back in the center and do the sermon again. You can kind of pop cooldowns on this. If you have longer cooldowns, if you're playing a class which has longer cooldowns, you almost always want to save your cooldowns for the add, because it's important that you kill the add before he comes out of the sermon, because otherwise you're going to have to deal with the boss and the add, and they can both cast Soul Extinction, and you can only interrupt one at a time, obviously, and that will kill you. Unless you're a paladin and you have a bubble, then I guess you can just bubble and avoid the mechanic. I didn't really have to use my bubble this fight. I think I used Lay on Hands once because Valeera wasn't healing me. And that's it. He transitioned again at 30%. Focus on the ads. He does this sermon AoE 7 times, I believe, at 30%. At 90%, he does it 5 times. At 60%, he does it 6 times, and then 7 times here. So again, you don't really have to worry about DPSing him. Honestly, as long as you can kill the ad, that's the only DPS check in this fight. I don't know if this boss has an enrage timer, but you don't really need crazy high gear for this fight. My gear is only, my gear is 305, which I think is kind of an overkill for this one. But you can definitely do it at like 290. I don't have any tier sets. My gear's not optimized. This is literally, the patch came out 2 days ago, and so all I have is like 295s from Delves, some Mythic Plus gear. My trinkets are trash. I have 9% haste as a Ret Paladin while I'm fighting this boss, which is really bad. This fight will only get easier, honestly, as the season continues. Once you have like 4 Ps, this is not really that hard, honestly, especially if you're using an add-on like I am for the memory game part. And once you've done the sermon 3 times, you've got the kill basically, because the rest of the fight he's not going to do the sermon anymore. So once he's below 30% and you've done the sermon, you won. There's not much that goes on in this fight beyond that. It's pretty repetitive, pretty easy. I've never really fought any other of the Nemesis bosses beyond, I think, Zekvir when it first came out, and that one wasn't that bad either. But this is definitely pretty easy. If there's other Nemesis bosses that are harder, I would like to know in the comments. But yeah, this fight is pretty easy, especially once you have the mechanics down, and it's pretty repetitive. There's not really a lot of RNG beyond the slime sometimes spawning on you. But anyway, I hope this guide helps you, and I'll show you what my talents are and Valeera's loadout. Alright, this is the loadout that I use for Valeera. Make sure she's in the healer combat role, because you do need her to dispel you, and she's pretty consistent at it, so nothing to worry about there. That's her only job in this fight. Honestly, her DPS is pretty shit as a healer. Use these curios. These could be level 1, it doesn't really matter. She doesn't really need to be level 80. Obviously it does help having a high level Valeera because she has more survivability and she scales with your eye level. Maybe having a higher eye level is more important than having a level 80 Valeera, because she does scale with your eye level, so she'll have more HP. Beyond that, there's not much you need to worry about in terms of, like, if you have a low level Valeera, you should be fine. For the talents for the Ret Paladin, I recommend taking this one in the Paladin tree. This allows you to use your bubble even if you have forbearance. So let's say if you had to lay on hands yourself, then you can bubble as well if you need to. For the Retribution tree, I like running Radiant Glory over Execution Sentence because that's 2 less buttons for you to press, which allows you to focus on other things in the fight. Plus, it's a short burst cooldown window. I like having that over Execution Sentence, which is like a minute long cooldown. That lines up really well with the Avenging Wrath, which is also a 1 minute cooldown. Whereas when you are using Radiant Glory, you can use your cooldowns every 30 seconds, but it's less uptime. It's just a preference thing, honestly. If you're using Execution Sentence, just make sure you're saving that for the ad when it's up. Beyond that, the fight is pretty easy, honestly. You can copy this loadout, and it's pretty doable with this. Yeah,